Hello, Hodgepodge Mama here. I'm back. Long time no see. I'd like to continue the series on ways that we are parenting differently. Our daughter's 21 months old now, and we are still parenting her a little bit differently, and we're getting to hear more and more feedback um, from people that's kind of reminding us that some of the things we're doing are not necessarily mainstream, which is fine with us. But today's topic is extended breastfeeding. Depending on, I guess, the circles that you socialize in, this may or may not count in your opinion as something different. I certainly didn't think breastfeeding was anything different. It's just what our bodies are made to do to nourish our babies. So it makes sense to breastfeed. But perhaps the extended part is the part that's a little bit more different in American society. Certainly not around the world. Around the world, the average weaning age is about 4 years old, and that's average. That's not maximum. There are societies or people, I guess families, we should say, that continue to nurse for several years past that. If you're familiar with the concept of milk teeth or the term milk teeth, the first teeth that we have do eventually get replaced with our permanent teeth, right? And there's a reason they're called milk teeth, because as long as we humans have milk teeth, we continue to get milk from our mothers, or at least we're set up that way that we can. And then once those start falling out, you replace them with permanent teeth. At that point, you really have no business breastfeeding anymore, unless you're on the giving end as opposed to the receiving end of the milk. But at any rate, I'm not really sure personally how I feel about I guess what I kind of consider the, I shouldn't use the word extreme, but maybe the upper level of breastfeeding. Um, there was a point that I thought, well, if you are going to be able to walk up to the mom and ask for the milk at that point, you probably should be weaned. I actually thought that for a time. I didn't realize how quickly kids are able to walk up to the mom and ask for milk. I had no idea that that could come when they're so tiny and so clearly still benefiting from breast milk and from the bonding of breastfeeding. So obviously that has gone out the window. Um, but the reason that I'm very adamant about continuing to breastfeed at this point is because of how hard it was for me to get started. I really thought it was just going to be something natural. It's normal in my culture. It's normal in my husband's culture. We were presumably, or I was presumably breastfed for a certain amount of time that now I'm finding out, was not maybe necessarily to the extent or in the same manner that I'm doing. Um, but I took a class at the hospital. I read up on stuff. I'm like, okay, great. I'm ready, right? But really nothing you can do before you can actually have hands-on practice is going to prepare you for that. So I just wanted to go through some of the difficulties we went through in the first 3 months after my daughter was born, and why being able to overcome that and having it be such smooth sailing, so convenient, and so beneficial right now. I really have no desire to just wean arbitrarily just because that's what most, well, I shouldn't say that's what most people are doing, because most people have never, don't breastfeed this long to begin with at this point in the United States, of course. So anyway, the first week was going great. I was getting lots of snacks. Every time it was time to breastfeed, my husband would prepare delicious snacks for me. Cheese and crackers and fruit and my favorite Nutella. I mean, it was just amazing, amazing. Because he was there supporting me, and it was a team effort. We were off to a good start. I really enjoyed that. He was getting up at night. He took paternity leave 6 weeks, so I didn't have to feel any guilt about any sleep deprivation on his part. So he was doing that. But it was uncomfortable, although, I figured, okay, it's just a little learning curve, and it'll get better. I asked the pediatrician about the nursing, about the discomfort, and she was impressed with the fact that I was exclusively breastfeeding and the baby had only lost 3 ounces from her birth weight. which I'm not sure why she was surprised, I guess, that I wasn't supplementing. I guess the assumption, even though when I interviewed her, she seemed very pro breastfeeding, but this first instance after my daughter was born, she already seemed surprised that breastfeeding could actually keep your baby nourished and full. And she did tell me, oh, it's supposed to hurt. So I should have known better. She didn't seem to care that it hurt, and she had no sympathy for me. Um, the other thing was she asked me how long I breastfed. At that point, each session was lasting about 30 minutes. And she basically told me, oh, no, it's not supposed to take that long. Your baby's using you as a pacifier, which she meant as an insult, I'm pretty sure. But if you think about it, what I know about comfort nursing, the pacifier takes the place of the mom. It's my job to pacify my daughter. So the fact that she was using me for comfort is actually a good thing. It's a good sign of our attachment to each other and our budding relationship. It's not something I should be offended. Oh, you're just using me as a pacifier. No, that's my job, in breastfeeding, if I'm able to breastfeed. It's wonderful that she can use that relationship for comfort, not just for nourishment. I also spoke with the midwife and the birth assistant during their home visits that first week. They tried helping with positioning. They checked the latch. They were like, look, everything looks fine, but I knew something was not fine because I was in pain, and it was just getting worse and worse. It was lots of pain. By day 7, so my daughter was born on a Monday. That Sunday, I discovered some serious nipple damage, and it freaked me out when I saw it. Took her off the breast and noticed there was a tiny, not even that tiny, there was a piece of nipple hanging off and it was a little bloody. So it was very gross. I'm not exaggerating when I say nipple damage, okay? Probably because I had gotten used to the fact that it was hurting, so when she probably gnawed through it, she didn't have teeth. When she gnawed through the skin, I just let her keep nursing, and that's probably what caused more and more damage. At any rate, I was afraid of touching it. Obviously, I didn't want to put her back on that breast. I was just so upset about that. I wanted to avoid it, which was the opposite of what I really needed to do. That was terrible because my milk was just coming in, and stopping to nurse at that point was probably not a good idea. I still continued to nurse on the side that wasn't damaged, but I completely ignored Lefty. And I had a little hand pump. I tried using that to pump milk and supplement what Righty was doing. But honestly, I was up until middle of the night trying to pump, and I was not able to get enough, and I realized that I had to bite the bullet and supplement. And actually, it was a really good thing that we had some formula samples that were mailed to us that were by the door waiting to get donated. And when I realized I had to supplement, it was the middle of the night, and I was able to give her some formula. And I remember crying and standing in the kitchen and telling my husband, I waited so long for this baby. I want to be able to enjoy her. This is not enjoyable. And of course, he was supportive either way. But it was very difficult for me to finally break down and give her formula. So for almost the first week, she was exclusively breastfed. She was thriving on that. I wasn't. So started giving her formula. Day 8, 9, and 10, my left boob had swollen, was huge, red, painful. I hadn't been expressing milk. I hadn't been nursing on that side, obviously. I was trying natural remedies, putting a cabbage leaf in the bra, hand expressing underwater. So I was trying to express a little bit, but I guess it just was not enough. And it wasn't working. I was getting night sweats. I had a fever and just incredible pain. I was sick. My entire immune system seemed to be just shutting down. On day 11, I finally called my midwives. I honestly had no idea who I was supposed to call. My general practitioner, an OB, a breast specialist. I had no idea where to turn, so I just turned to the midwives and called. And actually, the receptionist also was like, well, I'm not sure if this is something that they deal with, but she asked the midwife. A midwife talked to me over the phone, and was able to diagnose mastitis or breast infection just over the phone, just from my description. And thank God, I'm so grateful to her, Kelly. She was able to put in a prescription for nipple cream. Told me I had to get a pump. Oscar went and got a pump, a breast pump, and I ordered one from the insurance also, which was supposed to be better than the kind of cheap double electric one that my husband got. And and then I got put on antibiotics. The redness and the swelling went down right away on the antibiotic, but the pain didn't. And so I decided that I was going to pump and feed the baby the express breast milk exclusively and supplement with formula. So I wasn't breastfeeding at all. I think there were a couple of days where I just didn't put it on the breast at all. I was only pumping and then supplementing with formula. After about a week or two, I got brave and I started to try to put the baby back on the breast. And I tried every few days. I tried a little bit, and it was just painful, and it wasn't getting any better. She was born very tiny. She was less than 6 pounds, and she did have what turned out later when I finally met with a lactation consultant, a low palate. So she was kind of just munching on my nipple. It was really hard to get the nipple in her mouth properly. So really part of it was just having to wait for her mouth to grow a little bit bigger. I was referred by my midwives to a breast surgeon when the antibiotics weren't helping with the pain, and because there was a prominent lump in my breast that had been damaged. And what she discovered, the nurse practitioner, the breast surgeon, was that I had several breast abscesses that needed draining. They drained them right away, put me on a second antibiotic over the weekend. I came in on Monday again, had some more further draining done, and finally got put on a third antibiotic because it just was not killing the problem. And goodness gracious, that was not fun. I remember talking to the breast surgeon and asking about what does this mean for our breastfeeding relationship, and she really didn't hold out any hope that I could actually go back to exclusive breastfeeding. She really didn't think it was the timing, and right when my milk was coming in, I prevented one of my breasts from developing the full milk capacity, so she really didn't think that was going to be possible. As I later found out from my lactation consultant, when that's the case, you can breastfeed exclusively on one breast if needed. I mean, women breastfeed twins, and it's a supply and demand kind of thing. So that actually had a happy ending, but the breast surgeon didn't have high hopes for me. Another month or so of hoping that the baby's just going to finally grow a little bit so that the latch won't be so painful. And sorry, there's a lot of stuff to keep track, and I want to make sure I include all the details. Finally, after another month, like I said, I finally broke down and said, I'm going to meet with a lactation consultant. I tried all the home remedies, I tried all the cheap remedies, all the inexpensive or free options. I'm going to bite the bullet, meet with a lactation consultant, and follow the advice and do whatever I needed to do. And she was a godsend. Angela was my angel indeed. Not only did she make house calls, but she was one of those professionals where you can tell that she cares about being successful. She's not just going to give you some advice or write out a prescription and collect her money. Not at all. And she actually gave me a discount. So several phone consults, one in-person visit, one home visit. I rented a medical grade breast pump. I rented a baby scale. I bought from her a melange and biotin supplementation. Turns out I had an infection, like a yeast infection type thing on my nipple that kept coming back, on top of the breast abscesses and the mastitis and just everything that could have gone wrong with breastfeeding. Thanks to all of that, and some positioning adjustments, our breastfeeding worries went away. Literally the day after I met with her in person, I was able to breastfeed directly from the breast. I was still supplementing with formula, but I was able to breastfeed directly from the breast because it wasn't painful anymore. So I don't know what combination of the things. I don't care. I did everything that she told me to, and it worked. And it worked immediately, and it worked wonderfully. It wasn't painful anymore, so I was very grateful. So I continue to breastfeed and pump with the hope of slowly cutting back on the formula and going back to exclusive breastfeeding. And I rented a baby scale again so that I could weigh my daughter before and after each feed for over a 24-hour period, and then I would keep track and see how many ounces she would gain, and that's how many ounces obviously she took in directly from the breast. And after, based on that, I was able to determine that she didn't actually need any more supplementation, and that's very common with bottle-fed babies, that they get overfed. So the pediatrician growth scales are based on bottle-fed, um, formula-fed babies, so they're kind of skewed in that direction. Just something to be aware of. But she did not need supplementation, and it was just absolutely amazing to be able to not have to worry about making bottles, cleaning bottles, not pumping. I was just, whenever she needed to nurse, I would put her on the breast and nurse. It was that simple. It was as simple as it was meant to be, except I had to go through those first 3 months of hell in order to get there. So we were able to breastfeed exclusively for 3 months. She stayed within the normal range of her growth charts, and at 6 months we started to introduce solids slowly, and at that point we continued to nurse about 8 to 10 times a day, which the pediatrician was surprised, and this was a new pediatrician at this point, so again, that'll teach me to think that pediatricians actually are knowledgeable about breastfeeding. You know, you need a breastfeeding expert, lactation consultant, if you have any issues with that. A pediatrician, that's not their job. Currently, my daughter's 21 months old, just turned 21 months this week, and we still nurse somewhere between 4 to 8 times every day, including once or twice at night. Our goal, as I mentioned earlier, our original goal was to nurse for the recommendations established by the World Health Organization, which is up to at least age 2. But now, as we're getting closer and closer to her turning 2, I'm really not in any kind of hurry to wean her, and I see that she's not really in any kind of hurry to drop any feedings. And I'm okay with that. My only concern is with growing a thicker skin if I start hearing comments. I really haven't had any issues directly while I'm nursing, and I've nursed in public, and I gave up trying to use a cover after the first week or two. And I really haven't gotten any negative comments. I actually had some positive comments, but I'm always kind of expecting the worst, and I'm not sure as she gets old. She's also very small for her age, so that may have something to do with it. People assume that she's younger than she is, maybe. But at any rate, I am not in any kind of hurry to wean. To sum up, the biggest challenges of extended breastfeeding, she doesn't eat as much solids as I think that she otherwise might, because she can nurse instead and fill her tummy in. That's just fine, and it's easier and it's more pleasant for her, I guess. She's not sleeping through the night, which I know that every child is different, and this may or may not be relevant. We also co-sleep, which is another video in the making. But so I don't know if she wakes up at night and nurses for comfort or because she's actually hungry. I don't know, but she does once or twice. And then the other thing is we really can't be apart from each other for extended periods of time. Now she doesn't nurse usually during the day. She nurses to sleep. She nurses in order to go to sleep for her nap. She'll nurse at least in the middle of the night and then towards early morning hours. And then, you know, if we're having a hard time, if she's upset, or sometimes when she's bored, she wants to nurse. But really, she doesn't need to nurse more than 4 times. That's kind of the minimum that she nurses every day. So, and plus, I don't really want to be away from her for extended periods of time anyway. It's really hard for me because she has separation anxiety, so she cries. But we are insisting that she have daddy and me time. But the breastfeeding is not a problem with that. The best thing about extended breastfeeding, the convenience of being able to feed her on the go, in a power outage, to comfort her through her teething. She hasn't, I was going to say through illness, but the only time she's ever been somewhat sick is when she had a reaction to her flu shot. She's never been sick. She's almost 2 years old. She's never had a cold, nothing. So the immunity, right, that I'm able to continue to provide for her, even though it's less and less now, Um, she's still getting some. And as she's entered toddlerhood, it's actually a different benefit. For me, it's a benefit anyway. I think it's great playful bonding time because she has her comments and her antics during nursing sessions when she's at the breast are making me realize this is what my breasts were made for. It's not some perverted thing that society wants you to think that that's what they're for. They're not for men, okay? They're for babies. And anybody who has a problem with it can kiss it, basically. And it's now that she's a toddler that I'm able to see the innocence and see the purpose being fulfilled of this body part. And it's, I know it sounds silly, but that's because we don't talk about it. We don't see it as much. And it's sad that it's taboo, and that's why it's made it on my list of ways that we parent differently. And I'm sorry this has gone on much longer than I'd like to keep my videos, but there's just a lot to cover, and it's something I'm very passionate about, very, very excited about. And I'm gonna be sad when it comes time to wean, but certainly not going to stand in the way of that. So we're practicing, or we're going to be following child-led weaning. Basically, she will stop nursing when she's done, when she doesn't need it anymore. And as long as she needs me for that, her mom, and that's my job, and I'm going to continue to nurse her as long as she needs it. And no, I'm not expecting it to go on until high school. I don't think anybody's kids would want to be nursing at that age. So that's kind of a ridiculous moot point question. I'm not worried about that. But no, I don't have a set age in mind. Anyway, this has gone on long. Far enough. The video, not the breastfeeding. Thank you so much for listening to my story. And until next time. Thanks. Bye-bye.